or, I don't really want a lot of friends, but I want to have some really good friends, well, then there's value here, because there are a certain percentage of those 54,000 who have become very good friends, and I would tell you that that number is without a doubt in the hundreds. Now, that might seem like a small number next to 54,000. First of all, I haven't counted it. It might be over 1,000. But think about how many I would have if it wasn't for those relationships. I meet these people. I get requests from these people. They come to New York. I go to other places. I send out things via social, letting people, I know that I'll be there. I get people together for drinks, for other things. I meet them. I get their cards. And now I do my best to stay in touch and be available to them when I can. And I think anybody that understands how being friends with your neighbor is valuable could understand how, if you can extend that, it's valuable to you. And then it's a matter of how much you want to put in for how much you want to get. For me, it's very valuable to put in a huge amount of time. It's what I do for a living. For other people, it might be of less value to put in that much time, but certainly there is some value to making themselves available from time to time.
Okay, so a lot of the people that will take the program that this video is for are people who are going to be responsible or be involved with social media from their organizations. In the group that we have involved in the course at the moment, we have a lot of people that have been newly appointed to that sort of position. Their company hasn't done a lot with it yet. What would you say to them as the first things they should do in getting involved with social media for a business, for a company?
First thing they should do is start listening. Most important thing. Get a Twitter account. You don't even have to do anything. You don't even have to send a tweet. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of people out there that look at their Twitter followings, and the people that are not tweeting actively or haven't in a long time, they unfollow them or they take them out thinking they're not valuable. But I don't believe that. I believe a lot of those people are participating, and maybe participating very actively, just not engaging and interacting, but reading, listening, searching, doing all these other things. So the first thing I would tell someone in an organization to do is I would tell them to get themselves a Twitter account, get on Facebook, and just feel their way around. Really, really important. Now, if they say they're already doing that, then I would say the first step beyond that is to start listening about their company. They don't have to go out and buy expensive software. There is great software available that at some point they might want to get. But in the beginning, all they have to do is search names. Use twitter.search.com. Look for information about your company. Go to competitors. See what they're doing. Don't just see what they're doing, because, again, it's evolving, ongoing, and every day. So a few years ago, you wanted to see what your competitor was doing. All you have to do is get a few magazines, go on TV, see what their ads were, and you basically knew what they were doing, at least as much as you could find out, other than doing industrial espionage. Today, industrial espionage is being done via Twitter, and it's being done legally, because you get a view into employees at companies. A lot of employees list their company names in their Twitter handles, so you can now go and see what they're tweeting about, for better or worse. I would also immediately see what's going on within your own company. Another first step. Find out immediately who has Twitter handles, who's on Facebook. Find out if any of them have put in their profiles that they work for your company. Find out if any of them are talking about your company. So then you can get a perspective on what's happening around your brand that you might not even know about internally. Next, I would make sure that that person has a very serious discussion with the people in the C-suite and does everything they can, it might not be possible, to get them to do the same thing. To get the CEO to get on Twitter. Again, he doesn't have to be someone that wants to write one thing. Get on there, follow a few people. If you're the person, whatever your title is, obviously if you're Chief Social Marketing Officer, you probably have more of a direct link into the C-suite. If you're a Director of Social, you might have a VP of Marketing you're reporting to. First of all, make sure he's involved. And then try to bring it up the value chain so that people are getting an idea of what's happening. And if I were you, I'd make it as easy for them as possible. I would give them a list of people they should follow. I would give them some hashtags to take a look at. I would give them easy ways, or just send them links with searches about their brand so that you can educate them as much as possible. To me, those are the most important first steps. If you're not ready to jump in, and if you're really, really early there, I would be doing that. And the last thing that I would do is I would make sure to have a listening post about your brand. Again, this depends on what business you're in. But if you're in a business where your consumers, whether you're B2B or B2C, if their opinions and other things matter, and I would assume that's most businesses, then you should at least be checking and seeing if people are talking about it.
Okay, and for these same people, what are the things they should look out for, and what are the common mistakes that you see?
Well, the common mistakes is that they don't have a direct line of communication into the C-suite. The next mistake, and this really comes for the person hiring that person, is to make sure that you're not giving this job to somebody that doesn't understand your brand message, your strategic goals. Don't ever give this job to an intern. I mean, it's the biggest mistake that's being made across the board, or not even, let's forget the word intern. Don't give it to somebody who's a young person in your organization that really doesn't understand what you're doing. And the reason this mistake is being made is because there's a lot of people like you and me, and you look like you're somewhere around my age. I mean, you don't look like you're 22. You're probably in your 30s or something. But what's happening is a lot of the senior management in place, anywhere from late 30s into 50s and 60s, they automatically assume that kids in their 20s really get it. Because they do pick up things quicker than we do. But the problem is, what they do get, better than you and I probably ever will, is the platform and the technology. They go on, and it's just like teaching a baby a foreign language. They don't have the roadblocks in place that we do, because their learning is much more open. So they get this stuff. And they've also grown up with all this stuff. For us, it's been a learning experience. But what they don't get is they don't have the years of marketing experience. They're not keyed into the C-suite. They don't understand the strategy of the company, and very often the senior management isn't telling them all the strategy because they might not even want them to know. How can someone like that be the open and available voice of your brand or your company? Now, another thing, and the reason I also mentioned the word intern, and I think this is really important, because interns aren't always young. An intern could be a 30-year-old MBA student. They still should not be in charge of your social. Now, I went through this. I was at a meetup with the 140 conference, Jeff Pulver, and it was at the New York Times, and the woman who's running social media at the New York Times at the point was appointed from within, no social experience. The New York Times is a pretty powerful organization, and 3 times in her conversation, and I disagreed with a lot of what she was saying, but I was keeping my mouth shut. 3 times in the conversation, she says, our internet social marketing guru says this. And I couldn't help myself. And I raised my hand and said, excuse me, did you just use the word social marketing, internet, and guru in the same sentence? I'm appalled. I said, there's no way you should ever have an intern. First of all, the word guru shouldn't be used, and this was well over a year ago. Number 2, so people were much less experienced, maybe even a year and a half. Number 2 is they use the word social marketing and intern in the same sentence. And immediately, things were being tweeted out. It was being done in live time with a hashtag. And I'm assuming your audience knows what that means. They might not. But it's a way you can track what people are saying at the event. And all of a sudden, some of the interns from the New York Times started saying, listen, I really respect Ted Rubin, but how dare him say that about me? I'm not just an intern. I've worked at 3 different agencies, and I'm doing my MBA at Columbia. And I tweeted back immediately, let me repeat myself. Internet, social marketing guru, intern, social marketing guru, never in the same sentence. And then I went on to explain myself. What's the definition of an intern? Short-term, part-time. Do you want someone unpaid? Do you want an unpaid, short-term, part-timer being responsible for your strategic initiative in a medium that everybody can look at it every minute? Absolutely not. So to me, those are kind of the biggest mistakes you can do. And then the third is just going out and hiring somebody to do it for you. Not understanding who they are, what they do, what their experience is. And one of my pet peeves, and it might be that I'm prejudiced because I do have a big following, and it's very different if you're hiring an agency versus an individual. If you're hiring an agency, then you want to look at what they've done for other companies. But if you're hiring an individual as a consultant, how can you hire someone to be in charge of your social that has 300 Twitter followers, doesn't engage with any of them, and is barely on Facebook? I got to tell you, there's, I would say dozens, probably hundreds, maybe thousands of people billing themselves as social marketing consultants who have almost no personal presence. Their reason for